I ask for any negative experience to be lifted so that I may feel the full vibrancy of my heart. I understand that I cannot see light without darkness, and I recognize and thank the contrast now. I am free to let go of what burdens me or weighs me down. My heart is light. My heart is full. My heart is free. Hi everyone, Therese here. Welcome to this week's Karma Cards. So the message this week is about dealing with heavy, stagnant, or just lower energy. Right now we're in a time period where we've just passed a pretty epic full moon. And the full moon energy, after the full moon has accumulated, it starts getting smaller and smaller or waning. And during the waning moon phase, it's all about letting go and releasing. So I truly believe whenever we're feeling these lower, heavy, or stagnant emotions, it's actually to help us recognize them so that we may actively choose to release them. And I want to talk about a few that might be coming up because I've noticed them not only in people I work with, but also in myself. And the two that I really want to look at are depression and doubt. So depression in this sense, now I feel like there's a couple different forms that depression can take. Depression can take form because of, whatever's happening for us on a chemical, like a biochemical level. But we can also experience it through different events, such as grief. Depression is part of the grieving process. But what I also want you to know is that depression is actually a part of the growth process. And specifically, I want to talk about that spiritual growth process. Of course, we're going to come up to a point where we might feel a low, heavy energy of depression. So when you think about depression and growth, I feel like where the human experience can really show us this, that was a kitty sneeze, by the way, bless you. So as I was saying, where you can really see this in the human evolution, the human growth process, is that stage between childhood and adulthood, those lovely, misunderstood teenage years. And I think that we qualify part of our own process that we go through in our human evolution as moodiness when it might actually be a type of depression from the growth process. And when I asked my team about this, what came through is that the depression we feel during a growth process is the stage where we have moved from one state of being to another, and there's a type of disillusionment that happens. So if we look at the teenage years, we see that we have gone from a child and we're moving into adulthood. And there is a disillusionment that happens there. So as a child, think about your experience. Others were taking care of you. You were highly dependent on other people. This gave you time to be in your own world, to really reflect, to see the magic that's all around you, and to feel lighthearted and carefree. But as we move towards our adult years, as we transition into that, we start to see that actually, wait, I have to be responsible for a lot more. I don't have the time to sit and be with the magic. I have to start moving towards something. I have to think about survival, which I never had to really contemplate before. Just that one right there. Going from not a care in the world because others are taking care of you to suddenly having to contemplate your own survival, to start to understand the lessons of responsibility. These are very powerful states to understand, but also there's a heaviness that comes with them. Suddenly you start to feel the weight of the world on your shoulders, and that lightness that you felt as a child, well, it starts to be somewhat diminished. In fact, we spend a lot of time as an adult trying to find that state again, because that's our true nature. That is a highly spiritual place to be, is that state of lightness and deep connection with everything around us. So as you can see, as you transition through these stages, that depression is actually naturally part of the process. because of the disillusionment. Well, it's the same in your spiritual growth journey. As you're moving from one state of understanding into a higher state of understanding, you have to transition out of what you thought you knew to receive more. And again, that can create sort of a disillusionment or a cognitive dissonance. And when you're experiencing cognitive dissonance that, hey, maybe this wasn't what I thought it was, right? That can create a type of heaviness, that sense of depression, of sometimes even hopelessness. Well, what can I do about that? If it's not what I thought it was, what can I do about it? And that's a heavy emotion that has to be processed. You're also experiencing some sort of limit in yourself. There's a self-limiting belief that we usually meet on the spiritual growth journey, and these tend to come up during a period known as the dark night of the soul, which usually gets instigated after some level of awakening is achieved. So I always like to talk about the perception of what spiritual awakening looks like versus the reality. So the perception is that, I just shared one on Instagram the other day, where if it was the tarot, you'd think awakening is the sun, like it's the happy child riding the white horse through a field of sunflowers, and the sun is shining, and that's spiritual awakening. When the reality is, in the tarot, the spiritual awakening card is the Tower, which shows giant bolt of lightning hitting it in the dead of night. The tower is being knocked over at the top, which is the head, and people are falling out screaming to their death. And that is spiritual awakening. What that card actually signifies is false ideas or false realities being knocked out of both hemispheres of the brain. So the male representing left and the female representing the right hemisphere. So it's knocking false ideas out of the brain. And that's what awakening is. But that can trigger that feeling of the dark night of the soul. Who am I? What is this all about? Does it even matter? What am I doing here? There's nothing I can do about this. I'm falling apart. All of these are part of the spiritual awakening process. And if you're having those thoughts, they can feel quite heavy and create a sense of depression, right? And so this type of depression, it's not a permanent state, but it is a state that you have to pass through on the journey. It's like the dark, thick woods that you have to go through to get to the other side. So then I asked the team today, okay, so this is a part of the journey. Got it. Don't love it, but I accept the information. What is it you recommend for us to do to move through those lower energies? How would you suggest that we balance that? And that is the first thing they said, is to recognize the contrast. How do you see your own light without the darkness? So this part of the journey, the dark night of the soul, is provided to you so that you may witness your own light. And then they gave me information about how to increase that sense of light, and I want to share that with you. I want to give a shout out to my friend Stacy. You know who you are. Thank you for sending us this awesome article about photons and the heart. Wait till you hear this. This is amazing. So a scientifically controlled study conducted by German researchers at the University of Kassel has shown that while the chest area of an average person emits only 20 photons of light per second, so just take that in. On average, you're emitting photons, which are light particles, from your heart 20 per second. If you meditate on your heart center and send love and light to others, you increase your photon emitting power up to 100,000 photons a second. From 20 to 100,000. This is 5,000 times more than the average human being. Numerous studies have also shown that when these photons are infused with loving or healing intent, their frequency and vibration increases to a point where they can literally change matter, heal disease, and transform negative events. So this is what in the law of one they would call the doubling or the squaring of intent. So imagine now one person going into that space of higher feeling, higher frequency, and emitting intentional thoughts of love and healing out into the world. Well, then when you go from 20 to 100,000, so 5,000 times more than you were emitting without those feelings and thoughts. Now imagine doing that with a group of people. So when you add 2 or more people together doing this, it doesn't just go from 100,000 to 200,000. It actually goes to 400,000 because of the law of squares. And it just keeps increasing. The more people you add, the bigger the radiation effect has. That's why doing that group meditation or global coherence is so powerful, because it really does. We are radiating light particles out of our heart center. So the heart also feels love, thinks and remembers, and communicates with other hearts. In fact, this is how telepathy works. When I teach telepathy classes, I'm always pointing out this is actually where, right here, is where telepathic communication is coming from. It stores information and continually, with each beat, pulses information through the body. It is far more than modern science would have you believe. It also pumps a pump that is a cellular symphony, the essence of your being, and is magnetic and radiating a vortex of true source and human power. So those of you who know what a torsion field is, so a torus or a torsion field is, it kind of looks like a donut. If you were to look at a donut instead of like straight down where you'd see the hole, if you turned a donut sideways and the hole's in the middle and you'd see the sides of the donut radiating outward, well, that's what a torsion field looks like. Your heart is in the center. Every living thing has a torsion field around it. Ours is centered on the heart. So this is how we are radiating our field around the body. So first, understand that without any effort, you're already radiating light. When you apply effort, you maximize your radiant field. So now going back to the team said, well, what can you do about it? So I pulled some cards, and these 3 literally jumped out of the deck and fell on the ground. And it says fire, sun, and wand. Now here's what's interesting about these cards is they're all saying the same thing. So wands in the tarot are represented by the element of fire. Fire, obviously, and the sun are connected to each other. They're all connected to the heart. And when you're going through this lower negative emotion like depression or the other one I'm going to talk about, what you want to do is intend an increase of fire in the body. So the element of fire is connected to the heart center. So when I teach the 4 intelligences, there's body, heart, mind, and spirit. Fire is connected to the heart. And you want to just imagine breathing in light. Breathe in photonic light through your heart and then radiate it out. Okay, so let's practice this right now together, you and me. Take your hands, put them over your heart. Take a deep breath in through the nose. And as you're breathing in, imagine breathing in the sun's rays right through your heart. And as you blow out, imagine blowing out beautiful fiery energy. And you can keep doing that in through the nose. Breathe in the sun, exhale fire. And what you're doing actually is you're gathering more pranic energy around you. So there are light photons also floating around you in your environment right now. That's right, you're surrounded by light photons. And these light photons aren't just coming from you, they're coming from other living things. Actually, matter, even like something hot like this table, gives off matter gives off photonic light as well, even though we wouldn't see it as conscious or living or breathing. It's still giving off photons. So you can actually gather in photonic light into the body intentionally and then express more of that light, right? And as you're doing this, maybe priming your thoughts with just feelings of, I love and accept myself exactly as I am. I love and accept others exactly as they are. And you just keep doing that to help increase not only your frequency, but literally the output of light you can send out in the world. So the other heavy emotion that can come up while you're going through this spiritual growth process, and especially if you have a lot of programmed in self-limiting beliefs, is doubt. And I work with this with pretty much every client I work with, are feelings of self-doubt. And according to Tibetan text and belief, doubt is actually not something that's there to help you. It's planted there to, it's actually, they see it as part of that control matrix programming, that it is there to take you off path. And they always caution to understand the difference between doubt, which is meant to take you off your path, and alertness, which comes from the heart. So your doubt does not live in your heart. The heart has no doubt, none at all. That's why when people tap into it, they feel their potential, they feel their destiny, and they're like, I think I can do this. I know there's a part of me that just knows this is meant for me. See, no doubt in the heart. Doubt is in here. And this can be easily manipulated by, again, all the programming that we've all had to go through while being on this plane. And it's designed to take you off path. So what will bring you back on path is the heart again. Now, they want to let you know that sometimes doubt gets confused with alertness. Alertness does come from the heart. And it's that heart-centered feeling of like, be careful, this is the wrong way to go. I get a hard no on that. Like this, I don't know why, I'm just not supposed to go there. And we've all had that experience. In fact, if you want to share it in the chat, I'd love to read it. I've had like a really strong one that happened for me, happened in college, where I had to walk from one part of my campus to another, and it was like a 2-mile walk, and it was after 8 p.m., and I was a young girl, and I was walking down the street, and I was coming up to a very shady part, and I got this big gut feeling to stop, like, do not go any further. And what happened was there was actually this sketchy guy up on the road, and he was waiting for me to go into that area, and a girl in my class had been attacked 2 weeks before. So I got this strong feeling, do not go there. And of course I was confused. I was like, well, I need to get to my car. I was on the other campus, and I was like, help me, I don't know what to do. Out of the blue, a tow truck pulls up and asks me, which direction is the other campus, and can I point him there? And he asked me if I wanted a ride, and I got a no to that too, but I used that opportunity to go right back to the other campus and talk to security. So that was one of those moments that really stuck with me about, like, that was a hard no coming from the core of my being, and it wasn't about doubting myself, it was about being alert and aware of probable danger. And then, of course, divine intervention came in too. So going back to this, when you're feeling self-doubt, that's in here. I don't know if I can do this. That's up here. Put your hand on your heart again. Do those deep, fiery breaths into the heart. And again, ask, should I do this? And you're going to get mm-hmm or mm-mm. Most of the time you get mm-hmm. Do it. All right, so let's go into karma cards next. All right, for those who are new to karma cards, let me show you how these work. I got 3 decks here: the planets, signs of the zodiac, and the houses of astrology. And I've already asked my team, what message do you have for the collective this week? And I've got 2 sets of answers, one in red, which are action related, and another set in blue, which are outcome related. And the way that you play is you tune into your heart intuitively and ask, what is it I need this week? Do I need action answers or outcome answers. And of course, you can always have both. And while you are deciding what answer you need, the timing for this reading is today, October 27th through November 3rd. Right. The flavor of this reading, we've got Mars, which usually indicates some kind of action, in the sign of Gemini, which is all about communicating with others and self-expression, in the 6th house, ruled by Virgo, which is about your health, work, and service to others. For those who are choosing action, your spiritual action at this time is to energize what you want to be known as a full-time job. Energize what you want to be known as a full-time job. So it looks like it's time to get really into alignment with our authentic self, right? There's no time like the present time. It's the time to hold back or suppress has passed, and it's time to move into a more active expression state. So it's really about, now Mars can lack tact, although I think Gemini has the charm that would help us do this. So it's about expressing yourself and letting what you want to be known about you be known without creating that feeling of less than, right? There's no, it's really interesting how defensiveness can come up when we try to express our authentic self because we feel vulnerable. And so there's a desire, a knee-jerk desire to protect. And yet what I'm getting here is like, you catch more flies with honey and charm. It's not about, expressing yourself is only about that. Nothing else, no defensiveness needs to come in. No one's wrong in their perception. And their perception is none of our business. It's just time to get used to authentically self-expressing. The mental action at this time, confront what is believed about serving. Confront what is believed about serving. So we've really, this idea of serving or servitude or servant, right? Like listen to all of that and consider like what comes up. I know that when we're looking at service to others, and if we haven't fully included ourselves, if we haven't fully loved on ourselves enough, it can become martyrdom. We really can easily kick ourselves out of the circle, meaning that we don't see ourselves as part of service to others. We see ourselves as separate. And so during this time is to clear any of that idea of separation, that to help you, I somehow have to forget about myself. It's a delicate balance. It really is. It is remembering that you need to fill up your own cup so you have something to give. So that's a good place to start. Notice if you have kind of a knee-jerk reaction to that. If that is like, well, that feels really selfish. Like I'm only worrying about my own needs. It's only selfish if the only thing that ever happens is your cup constantly get filled while others remain empty. Right? So we have to look at this. How do we feel about serving? What are the thoughts about serving? And what's getting in the way of me feeling whole while being in service? Physical action at this time. Force yourself to use the quickest way and do it a little at a time. All right. Force yourself to use the quickest way and do it a little at a time. I feel like this is saying this reading is acknowledging some sort of resistance to what is asking to be done. It's saying, look, you got to get over this. Like, it's time to be authentic. Get over the worry about what others think. Or it's time to recognize that your needs are important while you're doing important work. So get over that feeling that taking care of yourself is somehow selfish. And now it's saying, you got to find the way to just get in there, right? Just get yourself to get in there and do it. Whatever it is you're resisting right now, it's like you got to give yourself that little nudge and push and be like, what is the thing I can do right now? Right? So if you're like, oh, I want to be of service to others, but I don't know how, then the push is, what can I do right now? Well, I can make a sandwich for my husband and he didn't ask for it, but I bet he's hungry, right? And then that's a moment of service. And then we realize, wow, maybe I was making my service to others too big, as an example. And do it a little at a time. So they're not asking you to make big leaps here. They're saying, get off the butt, get off the butt, figure out how you can do something right now in the direction you want to go in. And it doesn't have to be a grand gesture, because many little gestures lead up to the big amount of service you do in your life, right? So if that's one of the beliefs that might need to get worked through, is I believe acts of service are grand gestures. So I'm waiting for that opportunity. Well, what if your life isn't about these grand gestures, but it's about the little things that you do every day? And when you start paying attention to where you're already being of service and you start appreciating that, well, then you really start to feel it. You really start to feel how you already are contributing. So it might be about it's definitely about, with Gemini in here, shuffling around some of the ways you think about yourself and kind of seeing it more clearly. So that's one of the action themes this week, is like, I got to shake myself out of this. I've got to move forward into my authentic self. I need to reassess what I'm looking at here. What have I decided about this? Is it right? Is it helping me? Do I feel good about that? Not so great, right? Or I'm blowing it out of proportion. The sixth house, Virgo, it doesn't want that. It wants to see the specifics, and it wants you to see the specifics in what you're doing. Now let's look at outcomes for Mars in Gemini in the sixth house of health and service. The spiritual outcome at this time is the drive for information to explain service to others. So as you're breaking apart your current belief around it, that's going to naturally drive you to want to seek out new information about, what don't I know? Can somebody explain this to me? Like, what's your perception of this? As you're breaking apart your old perception, so that, maybe you can have a stronger relationship with that, or even create a sense of security in yourself that, yes, you are doing it, right? If you've been kind of down on yourself that maybe you're not doing enough, there's a good chance that you're doing plenty, but it's how you're viewing it that is keeping you stuck and feeling limited. So this is going to it's going to cause you to break open and really expand your thinking here. Mental action at this time, the confronting of communication about what is good for us. All right, so there are opportunities here to communicate with other people about what is good for us. When I take this in, what I get is, I need to know what's good for me. I know what's good for me. And when I stay in that place, and I don't expect other people to follow my path, because I understand that everybody's path is going to be slightly different. Some people might see my perspective and hold a very close match to that. And then there are going to be people who have a very, very different idea about what is good for us. I feel like, though, what this time period is saying is that the communication is just as important. Whether or not anyone comes to a consensus, it's not about trying to get people onto your path. It's trying to see and communicate all the perspectives, because that's the only way we can see the consensus reality, which is the bigger picture. Like, what is the big picture here? And so having these conversations, which can be difficult sometimes, or if you're coming from that place of like, I know what's right for me, what's right for, you share what's right for you, right? So where we're holding that place of like, I feel safe and secure because I'm not being asked I don't have to change anything. I just need to listen. And when that other person feels that space, this is a safe space to share their perspective, well, then they may grant you that same return. We're like, this is how I feel, but I'm willing to listen. The more of that's happening in the world, the more cohesive and unified we become, where we're listening. So it's so interesting that people feel threatened by just listening. And it makes me wonder, it's like, are they worried that their perspective is too shaky? And that really comes from self-trust. So the more you trust yourself, the more you trust what you get is right for you, the more grounded and solid you are in yourself. And then when someone else expresses their truth, it's not a threat. It is pure information, which is easy to hold. Physical action at this time. Action resulting from the fluctuations of your work. Yep, I feel like this one is specifically talking just to the world out there. So we've been seeing this already. Action resulting from the fluctuations of your work. So again, on a personal level, I think we're all going through this time period right now, but about what we're giving out in the world, that is constantly in flux right now, and is constantly asking for us to see it differently, see differently, adapt. So again, depending on whether you're dealing with outside world circumstances or internal world circumstances, you are going to be asked to adapt again and again right now. We're in a period of heavy adaptation. A lot of changes. We're still in the 2021 vibration, which is a 5, and 5 is the number of change. And sometimes that can feel like chaos. Nothing is settled in this type of energy. In fact, I really feel like we won't start feeling settling until 2022. And probably not straight away. I get a strong feeling like, again, that vibration, it's going to slowly build. So 6 is one of the building type numbers. It's about nurturing. And nurturing, if it's not happening yet, that's going to take a minute, right? To create a nurturing relationship. Think about just those words, nurturing relationship. To nurture something means you take time with it, right? It's not like instant, like, oh, I trust you and this is so great. No, it's like, think about a feral animal adapting to being domesticated. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes time and consistent nurturing. So the next grand phase of energy we move into is a nurturing responsibility, constructive type of energy that has a sort of slow build to it. It requires us to constantly come back and create that nurturing sensation. So while we're going through this heavy fluctuation period, we want to understand that we're actually learning from this how to be more nurturing to ourselves, and then more nurturing to others, and having compassion, understanding, and forgiveness are the tools of nurturing. And so these are what this time period is kind of molding us to, like compassion, adapt, right? Understand, just listen, understand, right? As we get this, the chaotic energy dies down and the building of a new foundation begins. So we're in that process right now where it's like the more we choose to understand ourselves, the more understanding we can have for others, the more compassion we can have for ourselves and what we're going through, the more we can display that compassion to others. And so that's the kind of like action time we're in. It's kind of like we feel like Play-Doh. We're silly putty. We're constantly being molded and remolded until we kind of get this new human evolution form that's coming in. But it is coming in. And there's so much light. And I hope that you remember from today's episode just how much light you give off without thinking about it. And then what happens when you really concentrate on how much love and light you can give off? Nurturing, adaptation, changing the world. And before I forget, because I just realized, like by the time I see you again, it'll be here. The next New Moon Spirit Circle is coming up November 4th. Okay, so keep that in mind, and I hope to see you there. I love you so much, and I can't wait to see you next week. Mwah. Thank you for watching. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell so that you know the next time I release a new video. Until then, stay magical.